17 years ago, internationally acclaimed author, novelist, and film producer James Redfield from the United States published his first novel, The Celestine Prophecy. The book soon became a phenomenal New York Times bestseller and one of the world's favorites, with 20 million copies sold in 34 languages by 2005. It was also the #1 international bestseller in 1996. A sequel soon followed, titled The 10th Insight, and together with The Celestine Prophecy, spent a combined 74 weeks on the New York Times list. Mr. Redfield has also been recognized for his contributions through several honors, including the prestigious Medal of the Presidency by the Italian Senate. In 1999, Celestine series brought forth a new adventure with The Secret of Shambhala, in search of the 11th Insight. And in February 2011, Mr. Redfield published the 4th book, The 12th Insight, The Hour of Decision. Like all his novels, the new book immediately grasped the minds and hearts of readers.
I'm very excited about talking about the new book, The 12th Insight, because it's really happening out there. There is another step in consciousness occurring out there in the world, and I think it's something we're all doing at the same time. It's a return to authenticity and integrity, and we can see it happening as a counter stream to all the challenging aspects of life right now.
You opened the 12th Insight, speaking of truth-telling and deceit. Well, you opened the 12th Insight with an interesting quote by George Orwell. In the time of universal deceit, truth-telling becomes a revolutionary act. Why did you choose this quote?
Because what we're discovering now is the power of truth. As soon as we decide as individuals to come back to truthfulness, and that means telling the truth to ourselves. That means all the secrets, all the addictions and distractions that we don't want anybody to know about. We have to start to talk about those openly. What does that do? It makes you transparent. It also makes one authentic. And that is a centeredness that opens the spiritual connection. We could believe all these things intellectually, but if we're still living a lie, so to speak, then we can never integrate and live every day the spiritual path that we're on. Now, this is just a journey humanity is taking. But as now we wake up to another step, what we're beginning to tell is a radical truth, but in a loving way, in a helpful way.
At the time of the book's release in February, movements of citizens speaking out for their rights and freedoms were spreading across the Middle East and elsewhere around the globe.
What's alarming us is the degree of lying, deception, and corruption in the world. And it's always been there, of course. But what's happening is that we're becoming aware of it at all levels. And what's occurring is then that we want to come back to an authentic life, because the deception makes us crazy, essentially, because we lose our grounding in truth. But what happens is if we begin to ground in truth, begin to open up to the rest of our wisdom, then we find a way to be guided and life goes better.
Will you tell us about some of the terminology that characterizes your work and message you are conveying?
Yes. What's occurring in my view, and again, I'm observing this, I'm experiencing it, I'm looking at the polls, I'm talking to people that are telling me they're experiencing something new. We're returning to a sense of personal authenticity, which means we're more able to tell the truth about who we are, what our soul's urge is to do to make the world better, and move away from the corruption that characterizes much of the world right now. In part, we're moving away from it because it appalls us so, in choosing a life of integrity. And when we do this, what happens is a new clarity and also a download, if I can use that word, of the rest of our awareness. So we've been operating too much on the left brain, logic, practical matters, trying to manipulate and control aspects of our lives. And some of that is important. The ego has a role in that. We do strategize. But what we're doing now is we're taking that logical understanding about our lives that's very materialistic right now and moving it into a place where we can add the intuitive side, from which we find these guiding intuitions. We allow ourselves to be guided more. Eventually, we start to follow those intuitions. And when we do, we have these amazing synchronicities, as though we're learning how to turn on the universe, and the universe begins to cooperate. So it's the soul's urge to come in and push human evolution forward into a greater consciousness.
Mr. James Redfield has always been keenly interested in spirituality, seeking to quench his thirst to life's questions since he was young. He studied Western and Eastern philosophies. He also incorporated his research on the human potential movement into his 15-year profession as a therapist for abused adolescents. Thus, his novels weave together psychology, philosophy, science, futurism, ecology, history, and more.
The truth, and this is an adage that has been around across all cultures for forever, across all religions, and that is, the truth shall set you free. Centering in the best truth you know, and saying that openly to everyone, it sets you free in a way that's personally transformational.
Mr. Redfield's storytelling leads us on a journey to discover the 12th Insight, which he once defined as the rise of a new clarity about how to live our spirituality at a new, down-to-earth level. We become aware of the revelations through the characters' experiences in the book. In doing so, we recognize the transitions as they are taking place today in both our personal lives and in society as a whole.
My job is to figure out something that I believe is really happening. It's really, I'm chronicling human consciousness change or human spiritual evolution. And I'm trying to point to where we are and what we're discovering in a novel, in a story. Now, the reason that seemed the best way to do it for me is because in a story you see characters facing challenges and figuring out how to overcome these challenges. Well, that's what we're doing in the world. That's what's happening. So these books are adventures that the reader can go on in order to explore what I think is an awakening that we can all prove to ourselves.
How exactly do you personally fit into your writings?
I'd have to say I'm none of them and all of them. A little of me is in all of them, and a little bit of every person as I see what's happening out there. They're all in this. The political context of the book is the real political context of this world right now. We have got a lot of people that think that the best thing they can do spiritually is to create Armageddon. And the counter to that is those of us who are devoted to the goodness of the world, perfecting the world. People think that's crazy, a lot of religions. But in fact, they all have a prophecy of perfection. They have a symbolic prophecy about somehow a return or a download or a reconnection will save the world and make it more perfect in the end. Well, I think at the soul level, we all know that we each have a role in that. That's something that pertains to every culture, every religion. And what happens is then we influence people, who uplift people. And you know what the sociologists say that it only takes 4 people to reach anybody in the world. Somebody we know somebody who knows that person we're trying to get in touch with. That's the way spiritual influence is. That's how we save the world. We influence someone who knows that CEO who's about to do something unethical and greedy and collapse the financial system or something. Or we know someone who knows someone who's a high exec in those food processing companies that add so many chemicals to our food. So we can reach anybody. Just if we live this ourselves, the influence reverberates out into the world.
Mr. James Redfield calls himself a reporter who describes the transformation of human consciousness as it is unfolding. He situates his novels at the coincidence between the end of the Mayan calendar and a mystical sacred document that explains the true beginning of human existence. The insight of returning to authenticity or truth comes from this sacred document and marks the new beginning of human history from within.
Well, we're definitely opening up, and as more people open up, the attitude of the world culture opens up as well. We have extremes at every level, and these are controlling forces that aren't presenting truth openly. What they're presenting is an agenda. Both left politically and right politically have this agenda. So that means that a true spiritual path is above those two ideologies into something that's real from a spiritual point of view. So again, the solution to the world's problems happens at the grassroots. People living differently and having a different attitude and having a greater spiritual connection and all that goes with that. What's happening is that then individual truths and people coming together to stand for something they believe is right and voicing that truthfully, lovingly but truthfully. That's why nonviolence is so important. You have to be offering truths in a giving way so that the universe begins to open up for our dreams, our soul's urge.
There is still much to find out about the messages for humankind in his new book, The 12th Insight. Please join us again for the conclusion of our interview with Mr. James Redfield, Wednesday, May 4th, as he shares his thoughts about karma, how we can download the universal energy to help our planet, and more. The book, The 12th Insight, The Hour of Decision by James Redfield, is available at www.the12thinsight.com and www.amazon.com. Thank you for watching Enlightening Entertainment on Supreme Master Television. Coming up next is Words of Wisdom, right after noteworthy news. May heaven bless our love to blossom and our wisdom to grow.
For more details, please visit www.suprememastertv.com/EE.